Have you ever had that feeling that you're kind of on a stage? Like the you that everyone else sees is this carefully crafted performance. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful map that explains how we build up and sometimes how we have to break down our entire idea of who we are. Okay, so to guide us on this journey, we've got these three core figures: the fool, the wanderer, and the sage. Think of each one as a key stage in how we form our identity. It's a path that takes us from just being to, performing for everyone else, and then hopefully finding our way back to who we really are. And this is really the question at the heart of everything. I mean, who are you when you stop performing? It's kind of unsettling to think about, isn't it? Because for so many of us, that performance is just second nature. But asking this question, that's the key. That's what opens the door to figuring out who we are underneath it all. All right, so here's the game plan. We're going to look at these three faces of identity, starting with the fool's unfiltered world. Then we'll get into the wanderer and their whole performance thing. After that, we'll talk about what happens when that story breaks down and how we get to the sage's clear sight. And to wrap it all up, we'll see why this isn't a straight line, but more of a spiral. Okay, first up, the fool. And it is so important to get this right. Fool here doesn't mean silly or stupid. It means being, pre-defensive. It's that state we're all in at the very beginning, just a direct, unarmored experience of the world, before we learn to put up all our walls. So the fool is basically seeing the world without any kind of filter. I mean, picture a little kid totally lost in playing with some blocks. They're not thinking, how do I look right now? Or what does everyone think of my block tower? There's zero performance because there's no self to protect yet. It's just pure, unedited reality. And this right here is a really key distinction, the fool's innocence. It isn't about being good or morally pure. It's simply a lack of self-concept collapse. In other words, they haven't learned that terrifying lesson that you have to earn your right to exist, that deep, nagging fear that who you think you are might just shatter. Yeah, for the fool, that's not even a thing yet. But, of course, that state of innocence can't last forever. So we move into the next stage, where we become the wanderer. And this happens when we learn a really hard lesson, that belonging is conditional. All of a sudden, survival, acceptance, maybe even love, it all feels like it depends on how well we can perform. And this is what gives rise to these two massive forces that shape us, shame and pride. But look, these aren't just feelings, they are full-on survival strategies. Shame is the voice that says, I am wrong, I have to change, or I won't belong. And pride? It's the flip side. It says, I must never be wrong. I have to secure my worth by performing perfectly. See? They're really just two sides of the exact same coin, and they're both driven by the same fundamental fear. So how exactly does this performance work? Well, the wanderer starts keeping score using these internal metrics. We're constantly asking ourselves stuff like, am I productive enough? Am I likable? Do I have the right moral positions on things? Does my life story even make sense? We get really good at functioning this way, but our actual authentic self, it just gets buried deeper and deeper under all these layers. And man, this quote just nails the cost of it all. It's like this closet of adulthood where we trade in our actual being for a performance. And on the outside, it might look like we're becoming more, more successful, more accepted. But on the inside, we're actually shrinking. We're filtering everything through this constant need to protect the fragile identity we've constructed. Which brings us to the inevitable climax of the wanderer's journey. Because a performance that takes that much energy, a strategy that literally makes you smaller on the inside, it just can't last forever. The wanderer's carefully built identity is heading for a breaking point. I mean, think about it. The sheer energy it takes to maintain that performance, to constantly monitor yourself, to self-correct every little thing, it's just immense. And eventually, the strategies that worked for so long, they just stop working. The whole system, right down to our nervous system, just gets completely exhausted from the strain. So what actually triggers this collapse? Well, it could be any number of things, and a lot of them are deeply painful, but also incredibly common. We're talking about burnout, a moral injury, a betrayal that just shatters your world, trauma, a big loss. It could even be a spiritual awakening, or just one of those sudden, quiet moments of insight where you see the whole performance for what it really is. And this is maybe the most important thing to get. When this collapse happens, it feels like we are dying. It feels like annihilation. But it's not the person who's collapsing, it's the story. It's that fragile architecture of the performance that just can't hold up anymore. This isn't a personal failure. It's the shattering of a false idea of how the world works. The experience itself? It's often this profound existential shock. What's happening is your nervous system is desperately trying to process a truth that completely invalidates the identity you've built your entire life around. And yeah, it can feel like you're being wiped out, but it's not a pathology. It's actually a natural biological response to the truth finally breaking through. But, and this is a big but, if we don't run away from this collapse, if we can find the courage to just stay with that intense discomfort, we can enter the final stage of this whole journey, the sage. This is where real integration happens. It's not about trying to glue the broken pieces back together. It's about discovering the self that was there the whole time, right underneath the story. And here's the core realization the sage comes to. That self-image they defended so fiercely. It was never the actual building. It was just scaffolding, temporary. And the amazing insight is that the real structure, your actual self, was being built underneath it all along, quietly, out of sight. Just look at the huge shift in motivation here. The wanderer is driven by a need for external stuff. Approval from others, looking like they have it all together, feeling superior. The sage's motivation, it's completely different. It's simply about being in contact with reality, just as it is, without needing to twist it to protect themselves. It's a massive shift from fear to curiosity. You can see the sage's true strength in this new kind of vulnerability. They can finally say things like, I don't know, and it's not a failure, it's an opening to learn. They can say, I was wrong, and it's not a moral flaw, it's the engine for growth. They can say, that hurts, and it's not a sign of weakness, but a sign of being alive and connected. Their whole foundation has shifted from performance to just reality. Now, it's really tempting to think of this whole thing as a straight line, right? You do it once, you're done. But the final, and maybe most crucial piece of wisdom is that this journey is a spiral. We actually revisit these stages over and over throughout our lives, but each time with a deeper level of understanding. And this really sums it up perfectly. Step 1, the fool feels with this pure, undistorted awareness. Step 2, the wanderer learns the rules of the game and builds up a defended self. And then step 3, the sage integrates it all, dissolving the defense but keeping all the knowledge they gained along the way. So you're not going backwards to being a fool again. You're reorganizing into a higher, wiser kind of innocence, one that's seen how the world works and still chooses to be open. So, the goal of all this, it isn't to transcend being human or to float above all the messiness of life. It's about the removal of anesthesia. It's taking away all those defenses and stories that kept us numb, that kept us from feeling reality directly. It's about being fully present for the raw data of your own life, the good and the bad, with total clarity. And that right there is what this whole journey is about. Wisdom is what's left over when the self no longer has to defend itself. It's about finding out what remains when the performance finally ends and all the walls come down. It's the freedom that comes when we can just stop managing our image and simply be. So the real question to leave you with is, what would remain for you?